All right, so you're thinking about building a computer. Maybe you're considering Intel CPUs, or just maybe instead you were considering an AMD Ryzen CPU. So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between AMD and Intel as we consider building a computer in the year 2020. All right, so I got my little set made up for y'all. And so a lot of different things we can talk about. Now, I have bought, obviously, quite a few CPUs, and this is only a portion of what I have for this channel. And we've built a lot of computers over the years. And so I got to tell you, I was spending most of my time with Intel. And just recently, we started with this Ryzen 3 3200G. Then we got a Ryzen 5 3600X. And then we went all out and did the Ryzen 9 3900X. All right, so with that said, we've run quite a few benchmarks. We've looked at a lot of benchmarks. We've made a lot of gaming videos on the channel, a lot of testing game FPS. And, for the most part, these CPUs are so close, gaming performance. But when you go and you look at the benchmarks overall, you just always see the Intels higher than the AMDs, all right? So for gaming performance, we're going to have to say it's Intel. All right, now if I was building a workstation, and, I sure wouldn't do it with an i3 or Ryzen 3. But I'll tell you what, the Ryzen 5 and maybe even the i5 9600K, or what we don't have featured is the one of the i7s or the Ryzen 7s. They can get it done, right? But when you're talking overall multi-core performance, it's hands down got to be AMD, all right? Especially this Ryzen 9 3900X. Even though this thing's got some great scores to it, it really hurts the old i9 in that category. All right, so let's talk about motherboard pricing. Now, you can run the Ryzen 3000 series on one of these A320 boards, the 450s. But if you want to get all you can out of these, you've got to spend money on the X570. All right. And it is more expensive than comparative Intel motherboards. Now, there are some, we don't have it here. I do have Z390 motherboards, but I couldn't find the box. Z390 motherboards are just as expensive for the most part, but they do have a low-end one that I featured on the channel, $99, where the cheapest one over here is about $150, $159, okay? So there is one thing to consider. Your motherboard possibly is going to be more expensive with AMD. Now on the low end, you can pick up a Intel 300 series motherboard, 60 to 70 bucks, sometimes cheaper, but 60, 70 bucks. And so on the low end, I think Intel is probably the better deal there. And this is an older motherboard that will support some of the older chips, but it is AMD Ryzen 3000 ready. So overall, though, I've got to say, price-wise, Intel has more motherboards to choose from, and they have better pricing. So just talking about CPU options, Intel has pretty much every price point covered. If you talk about what we don't really have here, maybe we do, i3-9100F, sometimes you can find these as low as $79.99, maybe as low as $76.99, usually, $80, $89.99, but pretty cheap there. And then on the high end, we don't have the i9-9900K or the KS. Those can run well over $500 for those. And but they've got a ton of different CPUs from here to there. Where AMD 3200G, 3400G, 3600, 3600X, 3700X, 3800X, 3900X, and then the 3950X, which we don't have here. But there are definitely more CPUs available with Intel. All right, so pricing. If you compare the Ryzen 9 to the i9, this is a much better price. It beats it easily, and there is no doubt about that. Up here at the 3 series level, whatever, these are pretty much about the same price. The Ryzen 5 3600X is actually running cheaper now than the i5 9600K. So advantage there on CPU price is going to be with AMD. Now something else to possibly factor in would be how much power these guys use, right? And are they comparative? So, because that could mean the difference between, maybe not this 850 watt one, but you going from a 500 to 550 watt, and that might have some additional cost. May only be $10, maybe $20, who knows? All right, so however, looking at these, pretty much all along the board, these CPUs have the same TDP. The Ryzen 9 takes a little more power than the i9, but for the most part, it's a draw. All right, now flexibility. You know, you look at some of the i3s, they're definitely better gaming-wise, in my opinion, with a graphics card than the 3200G with a graphics card. Now, without a graphics card, it's a different story. When you start to look at the Ryzen 5, the Ryzen 7, the Ryzen 9, not only can these game really good, but they are monsters for workstation ability, mainly because of that multi-core score. So where they are just below the Intel, comparative Intel chip in performance for gaming, they make up for it on the workstation. So for overall flexibility, I'm giving it to AMD. All right, so for ease of installation, pretty much the same thing happens. You put the CPU in the socket and use this lever to secure it. In this case, I don't actually have the CPU in there, but very similar for the Ryzens. So another thing to talk about as far as price goes, depending on which CPU you get from Intel, you may get a CPU fan. Usually the ones that have case in them do not have CPU fans, and you can tell by looking at how thin the boxes are. That's i3 9350KF. Didn't have one in it. This is the i5 9600K. Doesn't have it. I have an i7 9700K around, or i7 8700K. Same thin box. The 9900KF does not have a fan. The i3 9100F, which is a bargain, probably the best overall CPU out there. It does come with a CPU fan. So you got to factor that in, folks. All the Ryzens, at least that I have purchased, can't say every single one of them does because I don't know that for a fact. But this guy here, this stock cooler for the Ryzen 5 3600X, and this beauty here is the stock cooler for the Ryzen 9 3900X. Now, we've already discussed that the AMDs are cheaper price-wise, but when you go and factor in the price of an additional fan, in considering your investment, you want to spend something, not necessarily this one, but you want to buy something that has in my opinion, a tower, and has 1 or 2 fans on it. Keep that CPU cool, protect that investment. So this adds to the cost, right? Though this one here is probably a $20 cheapo. This guy here is I think about a $70, $80 model. And this guy really keeps things cool, right? So if you're going to get into serious gaming, you're going to have to buy some kind of tower type cooler. But if you're not, completely serious about gaming and you just need a CPU cooler, then, figure in, not only are these AMD cheaper, but take that Intel price and add, $20 to it or whatever. And then you really see the price difference. All right, fans. Well, I'll tell you what, this is pretty much a draw. Gaming performance, going Intel. Overall flexibility, the Ryzens. If we take this out of here, yeah. So overall, this is an incredible CPU for what it does. This thing is even more impressive than that, but it does come at twice the cost, right? But if I was to do it all over again, and I had to choose between my i9 and my Ryzen 9, I probably would buy this, right? But I'm not so sure between the i5 and the Ryzen 5. I think I would probably still keep my i5. So it's kind of, one way or the other. Any of the i3s that I have, and you saw I had 3 of them, I would take any of those over this, all right? So, overall advantage, I'm going Intel. But there are some circumstances where AMD is my choice, all right? So I know this doesn't really answer your questions because I'm still up in the air on which one I think is better. But hopefully you got something out of this. So, hey, if you did, please like the video and please subscribe.